talking about getting started with ZAP, or the Z attack proxy. A tool formerly sponsored and run and supported by OWASP, the community, the security community, but now in enterprise partnership with Checkmarx. Okay, so tonight we're going to look about how we can use ZAP for automated and manual vulnerability scanning of your web applications. Okay, so we'll have a bit of an introduction to ZAP's history and origins, what it's for, how we use it, the OWASP top 10, and then we'll look at actually getting to use the tool. Okay, so we have to set up the ZAP environment. You've got to download, install, and get your ZAP client working. In order to do that, you're going to need a target web application, of course, that you can test against. So immediate disclaimer that any security testing, penetration testing, exploratory targeted security attacks of this nature against a web application must only be done with the explicit permission from the organization and the application owner for the application that you wish to work with. Okay, so in this instance tonight for our webinar, and something you can do for your own personal training, is look at the plenty of online but insecure web applications that are provided for exactly this purpose. So we'll be working with an insecure app called the Juice Shop from OWASP themselves. There are plenty of alternatives there. All right, so whatever you do, make sure you have permission. This is effectively website hacking. Okay, so we'll look at automated scanning, we'll look at manual exploration, and then we'll look at targeted attacks, or fuzzing attacks as they are known within ZAP, to actually then generate some output, to actually expose some vulnerabilities. All right, so it really starts with the process of spidering a site to understand the structure, the various domains and subdomains that are available, the types of requests that might be made from the front end to the back end, and then using ZAP to potentially exploit some of those, or to make you aware that certain types of vulnerability may exist within that application. Okay, and finally we're going to look at some reporting options. Now, ZAP's an incredible tool, but the associated reporting for it, for the output from your ZAP scans, your exploration, is not so great. At best, you may get some HTML reports, but we're going to look at the use of Test-Evolve Halo tonight with a new feature that we'll be releasing soon, that will allow you to store the output from your ZAP security scanning alongside any other testing that you're doing on your delivery, whether that's functional automation, visual testing, automated accessibility testing, exploratory testing, guided accessibility testing, for example, lighthouse auditing. So on a project delivery, you've probably got every desire to show all of that type of test output together in a central location for your immediate team, but your wider stakeholder group as well. So we'll look at how Test-Evolve Halo can do that for us. All right, so let's get started then. Okay, so let's talk about ZAP, what it is, its origins, and also OWASP as well in this context. So it's a tool that should probably be on every security team's radar, and maybe also a tool that every tester should have in their toolkit, if you like. So maybe not as a specialist, but as a tester who can add additional value with a different skill set for delivery, in this instance in the security space. So firstly, a quick context on OWASP. So this is the Open Worldwide Application Security Project. It's a non-profit that's all about improving software security, essentially. So over 250 local chapters worldwide, tens of thousands of members. Basically, it's the security community working together to make things better. All right. So to date, one of their biggest contributions has been the creation and the ongoing maintenance of ZAP. So ZAP stands for the Z attack proxy tool. Okay. Without doubt, I think it's the world's most widely used web application security scanning tool. And here's the thing, it's completely free and it's open source. So, outstanding effort from the guys at OWASP. Now, there was an interesting development in September of 2024. So ZAP partnered with an enterprise called Checkmarx, meaning the original ZAP team joined Checkmarx to boost enterprise capabilities, whilst also keeping ZAP free and community driven. So an amazing deal for everybody in that respect. What does it actually do? Well, think of it as sitting between your browser and your web applications, intercepting traffic, analyzing each request for security vulnerabilities in real time, of course. I think we'd call it a manipulator in the middle, a proxy, if you like. So ZAP offers passive scanning, so this is totally safe for production environments, and active scanning, where we actually simulate attacks to find those deeper vulnerabilities, maybe saving that for test environments, again, which you have permission to work with. It ties directly into the OWASP top 10, which is basically the industry standard for critical web security risks. I think the last issued update, the last top 10 was 2021, before that 2017, so it's every 4 years. So we are due an update later this year, probably Q3, I believe, so fairly imminent. Current top threats include broken access control, injection attacks, and insecure design. I think injection attacks have probably been in the top 3 for many years. But here's why automated scanning matters, right? So modern web apps have hundreds of entry points that need testing against, thousands of vulnerability variants, and manual testing isn't going to cover everything consistently and repeatedly like any automation that we do, right? So this is why adding a degree of automated scanning is going to help you out to a great extent. I think the numbers probably speak for themselves. So, data tells us that breaches average almost $4.5 million globally per organization. Of course, regulations like GDPR, PCI DSS require regular routine security assessments, and a tool like ZAP can help you prevent those breaches and help you keep compliant. All right, so bottom line, ZAP combines community innovation, if you like, with enterprise backing to help us all secure our applications effectively and affordably. So you will find the ZAP tool at the Z-Attack proxy site from Checkmarx. Okay, so zaproxy.org. Simply come across to the download section, and there are going to be installers for whatever your OS is. Okay, so download, install ZAP for your operating system, and then when you fire it up, it will look a little something like this. Cool, we see the Checkmarx association there, 2.16.1, so this is the latest version. So we'll let that spin up. All right, and that's what you're going to see. You're going to see an introduction screen, and it shows you the kind of the two main methods of use, which, as we talked about, with the automated scan and the manual exploration. So more on that in just a second, because actually what we need is something to test against. We need a target site. Okay, so let's come over here. We talked about finding an insecure web application that you were free to work with. All right, effectively has been designed for this purpose. So there's plenty out there, plenty to choose from. The one that I'm settling on today is the OWASP Juice Shop. All right, so produced and supported by OWASP. As it says there, probably the most modern and sophisticated insecure web application. Excellent, just what we need. So let's have a look how we stand this up. So I think you can work with it in Docker. For myself, I'm just taking the first approach here, which is to work directly with a node application, essentially. So if I fire up a new terminal window, now I know I've got node installed, so if you want to take the same approach as me, make sure you have node installed. I cloned the application from that repo there in step 2. So run that command in your terminal, in your directory of choice. I've already done that, so let's just look at the directories I have in here. Alright, so I have juice shop, so let's cd into juice shop. I'll run npm install. Earlier I was running version 18 of Node, which I appreciate is certainly not the latest. I think the juice shop will require version 20 and upwards, so I did use Node version manager to bump up to v20, and then everything was just fine. So once you're on the correct version of Node, run an npm install, and then we'll see how long that takes. And then, as you can probably see from the directions, we'll run npm start, and then we'll expect to find that on localhost port 3000 within our browser. Cool, there we go. So npm start is the final thing we need to do. So npm start, let's go ahead, fire up the application. All right, everything is good. I've got lots of OKs, and it's telling me there it's listening on port 3000. So if I go ahead, open this up in a new link, a new tab, sorry. And there we go. So I have opened this previously, so it's telling me that the server has been restarted and my previous hacking progress has been restored effectively. But if we go ahead and close some of these down, delete cookie to clear hacking progress. So actually let's remove any trace of things that I've done before. But it's telling me I've got to restart the application. So let's just quickly come back to the terminal and close that down. npm start. There we go. Right, let's try again. Let's fire that up. There we go. Brand new storefront. All right, so a very insecure OWASP juice shop, a storefront for which we have every permission to go ahead and use a tool like ZAP to try and expose some vulnerabilities. So there you go, you've got your ZAP install. You've now got an application that you can target for that testing. All right. So just as a reminder, you'll find that on GitHub. Just search for Juice Shop on GitHub. If you want to follow the approach that I did, then just follow those same steps for a node installation and startup. Application for my security testing. I have my ZAP installation. So we're going to do three things. The first thing we're going to do is look at the automated scan capabilities from ZAP. So I'm going to come over here on automated scan. I am going to take my application URL and I am going to drop that into here. I'm going to use a traditional spider. So once we've done some basic scanning, we'll look at some choices that you have when you're using the ZAP tool, this being one of them, traditional versus Ajax. So we won't get into the too much detail with regards to these at the moment, but we'll come back and give you some guidance on how they may be relevant to you. And there'll be some other choices that we have to make along the way. But quite simply, I dump my URL in there. And I'm just going to click on attack for my automated scan. So we let that get underway. Let's bring that into view. And there's a bunch of stuff going on. We can see stuff happening in the app where obviously it is an app designed for this purpose. So it gives you indications that you have exposed a vulnerability successfully. So those are the green pop-ups you can see behind ZAP. In the browser. But what the automated scan is going to do first of all is take that URL. It's going to spider the site. It's going to expose as many paths and subdomains as it can. and then it's going to start to apply some active scanning or some targeted attacks, if you like. All right, so you can see that it's running that scan, it's firing requests away. If I click around here, I can see the spider tab, so I can see the nature of some of the requests that have been made. Okay, we'll look at how they display up here in a second. That's continually churning away. Bottom left-hand panel here, you've got your alerts window. So if at any stage you start seeing numbers crop up down here, so we've got high, medium, low, and informational. So if I want to see detail of any of those, I can click into the alerts tab. All right, so this is, yes, bearing in mind it is an insecure application, so we are expecting to find a lot. However, this is where you're going to start to see first indications of things that are potentially wrong or misconfigured or insecure with your web application. All right, so there's a few tabs along here. We saw the Ajax spider, the web sockets, and the active scan now. So now where it's starting to apply these targeted attacks. So if you sit there and watch that long enough, you're going to see those numbers probably elevate in the high, the medium categories, etc. So that's going to take a while. We're almost 40% through there. You can click on any one of these. Let's double click on a request here and then click on request up here, and you can see the exact nature of the request that was made to the application backend. I think that scan's now just finished. But what it's also done at the same time, in this top left hand panel, let's just stretch this out a bit, I've got now this sites tree. So there'll probably be some stuff on there that I'm not interested in. It's obviously it's come from proxying requests from the browser to the back end, but it's picked up some requests that are not intended to be part of my security scanning. So I'm going to just highlight those. I can either exclude them from subsequent scans, or I can just delete them altogether. So at the moment I'm going to delete these. What that's going to do is just leave me with a nice clean tree representation of the site that I'm interested in actually targeting. And now what you can see all of these requests from the browser through ZAP effectively as the middleman, and then out to the back end of the application, which you can see in the browser behind me. So bearing in mind I haven't touched the application, I haven't explored it manually at all yet. This is just simply by supplying the URL for your application and hitting scan. So we can start to click on these. You see different information about the request type. Was it a GET request, a POST request? What was the URL? What was the body? What was some of the parameters that were passed through? Okay. We have directories here that we can expand upon. We have an interesting API path here, API challenges. There's a GET request there. We have a quantities aspect. You can start to probably relate that to the application that you see behind you. So this is a juice store. It's a commerce store by nature. There are products, there are quantities, there's probably a cart, etc., etc. There's an assets folder. All right. So anyway, these are all of the domains, the paths that have been discovered from that initial scanning exercise. Now I can take that a step further. So for example, let's pick on a single request here. So this is a GET request to the API/quantities endpoint there. So I can take that automated scanning a step further. Bearing in mind it's already found us here. What have we got? 6 mediums, 6 lows, and 3 informational. Again, as a reminder, I can go here to see exactly what these vulnerabilities are. But that's just from the entirely automated scan. If I now select this request, I can right click on this and then I can say attack active scan. So I can further attack just that particular endpoint. All right, so there's the endpoint in question. We're using something called the default policy. You do have a choice there, so we'll come back to that a little later just to explain what the options are there. But we'll use the default policy now, and we start that scan. So it's going to make additional targeted attacks against just that endpoint. And you may see it finds additional things. We can do that on any of these requests that we find in here. Let's have a look here. Now, what this webinar definitely isn't is a deep dive on everything that you can do with ZAP. It's simply too much to incorporate in a single session, but if you've never used it before, this is essentially how you get up and running. All right, let's have a look around. So in our FTP folder, we've got a number of different requests and endpoints that we can target there. All right, so let's actually start to look at some of the alerts and seeing what we're being told here. So it's going to present them in severity order, of course. All right, so top of the list is our CSP headers not being set. It's telling us there are 28 instances of those. All right, localhost 3000, and then various subdomains following on from that. Okay, if we click on any one of those, we can see a little bit more detail about what the vulnerability is. All right, so we can see reference to the CWE ID. All right, again, we'll talk about this in a little bit, the WASC ID, and a description of the issue, right? So content security policy, CSC, added layer of security that helps to detect and mitigate certain types of attacks, including cross-site scripting and data injection attacks. So it's saying here, ensure that your web server, your application server, load balancer, etc. is configured to actually set that content security policy header. So bearing in mind we're testing an insecure application, that's almost certainly not been set for the purposes of allowing us to demonstrate this. And then you get some information at the bottom here which you can scroll to. All right, some references on the OWASP website and references to the top 10. All right, so this information is all displayed here as well. Okay, so that's the automated scan side of things. So if we go back to Quick Start, let's have a look. Let's move away from that now, and now let's look at the manual explore. All right, so it's going to retain that URL for you. I am now simply going to use ZAP as the middleman to open up a browser. We'll use a Firefox browser session. It's going to open up at that URL. I know we've already got it there in the back, but that's fine. And then I'm going to explore the application manually. All right, and we'll come back to ZAP afterwards, but we'll see from exploring it manually the additional coverage and scope we can achieve. All right, so let's just take a walk around the application. We'll get rid of this cookies banner. So these are a product listing page. We can click into these. It's obviously a very straightforward, simple application. We just look like we have a single page of products. We have some pagination options down here. We have some next page options. Let's change our pagination. So I'm just exploring how we're going to click around the website. All right, but I've got some other options, of course, as well at the top. So let's expand that burger menu. Right, there's a customer feedback option. Let's have a look at that. Right, so I've got a fictional feedback form that I can use for this juice storefront. So loved the green juices. Let's give that a 5 rating. Let's add the catcher. So 7 minus 5 minus 4. So by my reckoning, that's -2. Let's submit that request. Excellent, we've submitted a request. Let's close that. There is a search function. Let's go and search for banana. Okay, it's returned a result. That's good. Let's click on that. All right, and there is also, let's close that now. There's an account section, a login section. So I'm not really going to log in. I am, however, going to submit something. because that will fire a request to the back end. Let's do that. Invalid email or password, that's fine. Let's change some information there. I've got a registration function. Should we have a look at that? Again, I'm not actually going to put any meaningful information here for now. Let's just see what kind of requests are sent to the back. Okay, let's have to do at least a proper password. Let's start again, shall we? Cool. Somewhat of a dodgy registration there. Apologies for the delays. There we go. So we've looked at that. Has that logged us in? Not entirely sure. We have a language picker here as well. So let's switch over to German as our locale there, and then we'll switch back to English. Okay. So let's just click back over to ZAP, and we'll pause there for a second. Okay, so we used the manual exploration feature to kind of further explore our insecure web application. So that in itself may not have thrown up any more alerts here, but what I'm excuse me, what I'm expecting that it will have done is expose some additional endpoints to me. So this was a request when we're filling in answers post request, probably as part of the registration, I believe. Okay, so this was post request. It could be the same thing. Hard to tell sometimes, but you can see it was related to some of the activity we were doing there. So I'm going to come back to the automated scan. Now I've exposed some more endpoints. I'm just going to simply run that attack again. All right, so it may cover some old ground, but it may uncover some extra stuff that we are yet to see. All right, so let's kick off a scan. If I need to fast forward this and come back in due course, then I will do. Across the whole of the root domain, if you like. I'm now just going to feed back in on some of these new requests that were exposed by the manual exploration that we did. So I'm just going to select that request and run an active scan on it. Again, I'll keep the default policy for now. If I want to see how that's progressing, I can click on this progress window here. That will show me exactly what it's doing, the types of attacks it's making, and how far through the process it is. So it looks like that one's just finished, so we'll close that. Let's move down to some of these others. Let's go on this post request here, and we'll attack that. Active scan. Something happened in the app at the back there, so I think we've exposed something potentially. What I'm looking for is some really nasty ones, some red ones, some serious ones. I know there's some SQL injection in there somewhere. Alright, so that was the active scan. So nothing more at the moment. Let's look at the locale switching we did. You can do it at the directory level as well. So let's say I come back at the API directory. We'll do that next. In fact, that scan has just finished. Let's go again at this level. All right, another explosion in the application at the back there. So we've got 4 green stripes in the browser that you can see at the back there. So one of these automated scans has triggered another violation. You can now see, and this is what I was looking for, the bottom left there, we've now exposed a high priority alert. So this is good. This is the kind of data I wanted to see. I think we've got another one in the low priority there. That's 7. So you see I did that by selecting the API directory. And then attacking at that level. So let's try that again at the assets level. All right, so we start scan. And this is still all on the automated side. So the only manual part of this process I've done at the moment is a manual exploration through the browser, and then I've just done some rescanning off the back of that. So here we are, we fast forwarded and we're back. So I think we'll leave that for the automated scanning side of things. Before we move on to reporting, let's just take a look at the slightly more manual side of things, where we can take a particular request. So let's come back to one of these API calls. Let's go to this. As you see, as we move through these, and at the top right there, you've got request and response for each of these as they captured them at the time. So if I were to click on this post request, okay, the right hand side, I can see all of the detail about that particular post request. This here is the body of the request. Okay, fuzzing is the process of taking individual parameters within that body. For example, any one of these really, an ID here, we have a user ID here, we have an answer here. So we can focus on a particular thing. So why don't we, let's just take the user ID for now. I can right click on that. And towards the bottom here, you'll see something called fuzz. Now again, I'm just going to select that user ID. And I come over here and I'm going to add essentially some payloads that I want to use just to target that individual user ID with a variety of different payloads, so different attacks to make against that request, but focusing just on that parameter. So for now, I'm just going to work with the file fuzzers. If I come down here, you get a range of different things. I'm going to focus on injection for now. And with injection, if I tick that box, I'll get all of the sub files and folders and inputs and attacks. Now they may not all be entirely relevant to the type of backend that I have, but this is probably the quickest way to do it. So I add those, click here, okay that, and I've got a payload now to target that particular user ID param within that request. So it's not going to focus on any of the other paths in the application or the subdomains or any other request, just that one post request. So we'll start the fuzzer. So it's a very, very targeted request. You'll often find it's a little bit quicker because of that as well, despite the fact it's still making many, many requests. All right, so you can see here, if I start clicking through here, these are the different attacks that were made in place of that parameter. Following the individual parameter fuzzing within an individual request that we did, we can start to see. So let's have a look. Let's just look at the request here. So where I targeted a single parameter within a single request, and then I selected one or multiple files containing attacks to then further parameterize those requests. We can see in total here we've got almost 200 individual requests. We can look at each one. As I step down, you can see in this window here how the payload is changing from time to time. So this time it had contained some injection here. You can also see that injection on the right hand side in the payloads down here. So that injection of create username identified by pass123. So these are different types of SQL injection attack being passed to the back end through a post request to the API/security answers endpoint. And as I click down, you can see that the 200 or so variations that were used in order to try and expose or uncover any particular vulnerabilities. So that's what the concept of fuzzing is, really. So we'll leave it there. We've got a collection of kind of 1 high, 6 medium, 7 low, and 6 informational now. So that's a good range. We've had a good assortment of requests that are made against the back end. If we do want to, as I say, if you do want to understand any more of these, you can look at the SQL injection, for example. There are 3 instances of that against 1, 2, 3 different endpoints. So the same type of vulnerability, but present in different places. There are 40 instances of the CSP header not being set, so you get an idea for exactly where that is absent. Some ones we haven't looked at, we found a hidden file. And these probably URLs are intended to expose that, right? But if you want to look at any of these and understand in more detail the problem, it's going to tell you in this right-hand panel everything you need to know. So session ID in URL rewrite. That was the example URL there. Medium risk, high confidence. So risk and confidence, that's important to consider. So confidence is talking about ZAP having crafted a particular attack to try and test a vulnerability type, and to have received something back from the back end of the application that confirms that the attack and the vulnerability that it was designed to expose, the vulnerability has in fact been present. So it says, yep, I've got a high level of confidence that you are subject to this problem. And then the risk is the risk, of course. So were that to be in production within your application, is a medium risk, perhaps either from someone finding that or from it causing problems in your application should it be found. Okay. So they provide evidence here of the actual attack, the attack that was used. So this was the session ID that we can see was contained in the URL. It will give you reference to the vulnerabilities kind of rule set and guidance documentation. And yeah, you can go through and click on any of those and you're going to get that same level of information. This is the kind of thing you'd then want to pass on to your security, your development team, to then look into that and see if the issue that you believe you have raised is in fact a definite problem. You found a security vulnerability and it needs to be addressed. So that will do it for the scanning within ZAP right now. We looked at the kind of site-wide automation. We looked at the directory level or the individual endpoint level automation, the attacks, and then we looked at individual fuzzing techniques for parameters excuse me, within requests. So now we're going to extract our output from ZAP as an XML file, and we're going to see what we can do with it from a reporting point of view. Done enough scanning within ZAP now. We are going to output some results. We do that by coming up here and clicking on generate report. If you click on template, the one you're going to want is traditional XML report. You have a choice there. XML is what we want. You can leave this much as it's set up if you like, send it to your downloads folder. But yeah, quite simply, give it a name, pick a location, make sure it's traditional XML, and then you can generate that report. That will appear in its directory. We certainly don't need Xcode. If I just come to a terminal session now, so let's just show you one that I created earlier. So in the same directory now, I'm going to want this ZAP scan results.xml alongside something new now. We have a Halo CLI tool. All right, so you can get that by going to the downloads section from your Halo organization instance, and you'll see here Halo CLI. Download the one you need for your particular operating system. So that's the first thing we need. Install that. Make sure your XML file and the CLI are in the same directory. That's the easiest way of doing it. What we also need is an API key. So I come into my particular project. Towards the bottom in the settings section, there will be an API keys tab, and I can go in here and just create ZAP demo CLI key, for example. Add that key. It's going to give me an API key that I will use as part of the process to upload that file. So let's get rid of that. So our documentation talks you through a similar process for both the uploading of Cypress runs and Playwright runs, and soon to be ZAP runs as well. So this is a future release feature, should be arriving in Q3. But using the same process, the CLI from Halo, you can upload Cypress runs to Halo, Playwright runs, and now ZAP runs as well. Okay, so I'm going to come to a test environment. Let's just fire up the terminal session again. So I have my my Halo CLI here. I have my XML file here, same directory. Now let's just run a couple of commands. First thing I'm going to want to do is take that API key and use it as an environment variable. So in that directory, we're going to export a Halo underscore token and then the API key that we were just created and copied. So I'm going to enter that. And then finally, I have a one-line phrase with a number of arguments, which you'll see shortly. Let's enter that. So this is going to do everything else that is needed. So we call /halo and then zap. We have reference to our file in that location. So zap underscore scan underscore results. We have an instance argument which relates to our organization. So in this case, the name of your organization here, .testevolve.io. This is a test environment. Then we add a label. All right, so I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to change this label to be ZAP payload demo. Labels are used to give a maybe a sense of purpose to a particular run, but it also enables you to find your data within Halo and manage it and store it where you wish to. So we'll call that ZAP payload demo. We have metadata values that we don't care for in this particular example, and then we have a passphrase. We have a passphrase because when we push this secure ZAP vulnerability related data to our platform, we want to make sure that it is encrypted at upload and decrypted for viewing. All right, so minus passphrase. This is secure, obviously as insecure as the application itself that we were testing against, but for the purposes of this, I'll enter that. And you can see now I've had a run created with an ID of 19. So if I come in here, I'm on the unassigned labels page. Let's just refresh that. And we'll see now the output, the XML file from all of the testing we've been doing throughout this demo is now present in our reporting platform. So we have ZAP payload demo. You just saw me enter that as the label. So this is our label. It tells us we've got 19 alerts in total. You'll recall, in fact, I can... in fact, I've closed it now, but the ZAP, we certainly had a high. We had the 6 medium, the 6 low. This is a run card, so this is just gives you early indicative view of what happened with that data. If I click into that now I have to add that passphrase, right? So we set that as part of the command line argument. I can't get this data, I can't get any more detail from this data without entering that passphrase. So I enter that, I submit that. And then I now see my test run view. So now I start to see some real kind of lower level detail at this stage. But what's now cool is that you've got your ZAP data into Halo, into your reporting platform from TestEvolve, alongside all of your other types of data. All right, so there's no other reporting that really exists on the market like this right now. You'll get some HTML files, as we said at the beginning, but everything we do in Halo is based upon this drill down idea to expose varying levels of information about your data. In this case, secure vulnerability data for an application you've been testing. Yes, of course, we were testing a publicly available insecure application for the purposes of a demo, but in real life, this would be your web application that your delivery team is working on. All right, so we get a breakdown of our the vulnerabilities we found by risk. We get to be told about the highest severity alert by number, the most common alert. We have a runtime, that's the time we pushed it. If you've passed through more than one run, you'll have a run history table down here. Okay, so if I came right back here, I still have my environment variable. I'll use the same file, but if I sent through the same file again, I get a new run ID. And what you'll see now is that we have two runs. So we have the idea of a run history of consistent ZAP payloads with the same label being uploaded to Halo. So if this were, maybe let's say a daily scan of your web application or a weekly scan, you might start to see some history coming into Halo to show how that vulnerability position is changing over time. But what I can do now, I can now start to drill down and click into some of this low-level data. So here you see we have all of this information in Halo for the first time now. ZAP vulnerability data. So it tells us what we saw in ZAP. We saw 3 instances of that SQL injection. It's deemed a high risk, albeit a low confidence in this case. All right. But you can scroll through and you can see all of the other things that we were seeing in ZAP. Okay. So we can open up the number of instances there as well. We'll see that there were 3 instances for this particular SQL injection, this high risk vulnerability. So this will mimic the data that we saw in the ZAP scan itself. It just means we can hold on to this data and we can consider it from a historical point of view as well as we compare the trend from one run to another. But it has the information you need to raise this with developers, so you can see an attack that was made, you can see the URL, etc. What you can also see at the top here is reference to the CWE number, so you can click on that, you can follow that link out to another tab, and that's going to take you to cwe.mitre.org. This is the common weakness enumeration. All right, so community developed list maintained, so kind of a registry of vulnerabilities, if you like. And then if you scroll down, it's going to give you all the information you need visually and in narrative form to explain why that's a problem, how it needs to be, there you go, consequences, potential mitigations, how you might want to start resolving that within your application. So really all the information you need to start getting this stuff fixed, addressed, and hopefully before it makes it to production. All right, so that's what we see in Halo, that kind of level of detail. Of course, what it does mean is that I'm just going to change environments here. You can now start to add this type of security data and a history of runs on a security basis alongside all your other types of testing you're doing here. So we have exploratory testing here, we have visual testing, we have functional automated testing, desktop versus mobile. Over here we have automated lighthouse scanning. Here we have automated axe core accessibility checks, and they all work on the same basis. Click through to a run view, and then ultimately click down to see the level of detail. So just to confirm, the ZAP integration will be coming shortly. This is a new development. It will almost certainly have the Jira integration, for example. So when you see something you want to raise a bug, you'll be able to come here and send that directly to your Jira instance. All right, so this is really the first demonstration of how you can now start getting more meaningful reporting. So ZAP is an incredible tool. It's never been particularly well supported in the output and the reporting side of things when you want to embrace it on a more continual basis, like all good forms of testing should be. So if you're testing daily or weekly on a security basis like you are functionally, why should this type of data and this type of reporting be any different to this kind of level of reporting we see here? Let's have a look. So when we see here, we see a functional run, and we have this level of information at a feature and scenario level, our run history table, and your ability to go back, look at any given run and see how things have progressed over time. Now, this is a functional automated run. What this ZAP integration means is that you'll be able to consider ZAP in much the same way as any of your other testing data. So we think that's a massive benefit. And again, it's just another way you can add another facet of good quality testing to your overall testing strategy and your delivery. Okay. We did say we'd just explain a little bit more about a couple of the configuration choices we made. So as we went along and we were doing those automated scans through ZAP, when I was doing an active scan, I had a choice of policy. I probably expanded that once or twice, and I tended to use the default policy, but you can see here there's a bit of an explanation as what the policy is and what the other choices will offer you. So just to cover some of that. So really it's there to determine the scope, really, the remit, the scope of the testing that ZAP is going to undertake on your behalf. So by using the default policy, it's what they consider to be a balanced approach with moderate coverage and speed. So there is, some of these scans can be quite high performance on the machine that you're running them on as well. So that is a consideration. So if you look at, for example, dev CI/CD, so it's more lightweight. It's faster. The scans are optimized for CI/CD pipelines. Okay. You've then got pen test. So quite the opposite. This is aggressive testing. You're looking at real world penetration testing scenarios. So it's just a few flavors of how and when and why you might want to make different choices depending on the environment you're in, the nature of the release that's just hit that environment, whether you are doing it for the first time, or whether you are doing this following on from an external penetration test that your company has brought in consultants for example. So there's any number of scenarios why you might want to change and experiment with these different policies, if you like. But really, it's thinking about lighter weight and performance. So you might be considering the scan completion time. All right, so it says there minutes versus hours. So we saw a few that were even on a basic scan were taking a minute and a half, couple of minutes longer than some other types of checks. These lighter policies are going to have lower resource consumption, and it says here fewer false positives as well. So I think these kind of things probably almost certainly play into the risk score and the confidence factor as well. So when we start talking about false positives, that's very much something that's going to feed into the idea of confidence in having potentially discovered a vulnerability. All right, the more comprehensive policies, they're going to run for longer. They are going to have higher accuracy. But they're going to be heavier on the system. So, in simple terms, that's what you're looking at. The other thing we looked at was when we were doing the manual side of the testing, we were doing the fuzzing. And we selected a parameter within a request. And the first thing we had to do was add a payload. So I think for the most part, I was working with file fuzzers. Strings is a very common one. I think that strings is actually the default choice. But again, here it's just showing you what these things are actually for. All right, so say they're strings. These are predefined text-based attack payloads. So you're looking at injections, strings, scripts, boundary testing values. Good for SQL injection, cross-site scripting, command injection, etc. Used for input validation and sanitization mechanisms. All right, so that's just an idea for what strings does. Empty and null, fairly self-explanatory, essentially looking at error handling, null pointer exceptions, that kind of thing. Files and file fuzzers, so specialist file-based attack vectors. So looking at malformed files, oversized files, executables designed as safe formats. I mean, we were looking at the file fuzzers, and within that, we were seeing kind of subcategories of injection, and that those were the ones that we particularly used for the testing we did on today's session. So again, it's if nothing else at this stage, it serves the purpose of telling you that you will want to experiment. You may want to talk to your developers about which type of attacks are more likely to find vulnerabilities in your application. So you've got payloads to consider, and you've got policies to consider. And given the size of your application, the amount of endpoints that are exposed through the initial spidering, you can start to see very quickly how the workload here is going to build up and up and up. There's a significant amount of work and coverage that can be achieved using ZAP. But like anything in your testing, you're almost certainly going to want to take a risk-based approach to try and get those quick wins first, especially if, as we always advocate, if you don't have penetration testing expertise in your organization, and taking that seriously, quite rightly, you're going to have to go to an external consultancy to come in and maybe perform that penetration testing on your site for 3, 4, 5 days and write up a report. But your money's better spent having those guys find the hard to find, the tough challenges. Right? If you can use a tool like ZAP in your basic testing to find the easy, quick win stuff, then it's to your benefit to do that. And ultimately, that's going to save you some money by not having the expensive pen testing consultants finding the easy things for you. You do that bit, have them come in and find the harder to find bits and pieces. But anyway, this was just an introduction to ZAP. How it can be used, and then more so, how you can get more from your reporting. So I hope that helps and sheds some light on it if you've never looked at this before. Good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's session. So I want to thank you for your time. As I say, this wasn't and was never intended to be a penetration testing lesson. That's not what we do here, but this is about how you can use ZAP and how Test Evolve Halo is going to support your use of a tool like ZAP, as we also do with Playwright and Cypress as well. So some external tools by which we can use our CLI to allow you to push the data from these tools into your Test Evolve Halo instance for side-by-side reporting with all of your other types of testing. So thanks for listening. Please do come and check us out at testevolve.com or look at our docs on GitHub. And if this does look like something you wish to try, then as always, we have a free 30-day evaluation, no obligation, no credit card required. Have a visit at testevolve.com/try. Pick up your 30-day trial and look at all the other types of testing we support as well. And we'll see you at the next webinar. Cheers.